From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
It's a major illegal business that Super Bowl host cities must watch out for. We explain how prevalent sex trafficking is locally and what's being done to stop it before the big game. And the results are not finalized, but Martha McSally is already making herself at home in Washington, even though her stay there may not be permanent. We have an update on the close Congressional District 2 race. Between hundreds of years and several thousand cemetery plots, finding your loved one's gravesite could be difficult. But an online database and group of volunteers are hoping to solve this problem by identifying one gravesite at a time.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News. I'm Megan Thompson. Thanks for joining us tonight. We begin with the Phoenix Police Mental Health Support System. It's in question today following the recent suicide of one of their former officers. Craig Tyler suffered post-traumatic stress disorder after a 2012 shooting. Our reporter Michael Gordon joins us with how police associations are reacting to the department and Chief Garcia's response to the former officer Tiger's PTSD. Michael?
Megan, officials from both organizations expressed outrage and remorse today in their joint press conference, stating that poor leadership from Chief of Police Daniel Garcia was a contributing factor in the suicide of Officer Tiger and that the time has come for a change in leadership. It began with a moment of silence, but then there were harsh words from Phoenix Law Enforcement Association President Joe Clury, who spoke about the role he believes Police Chief Daniel Garcia played in last week's suicide of former Phoenix police officer Craig Tiger.
He is devoid of true leadership skills and has proven to be a tyrant and a bully who manages through threats, fear, and intimidation.
Both organizations see Officer Tiger's suicide as a sign of a larger leadership crisis that has been building since the arrival of Chief Garcia.
We thought we can get Daniel Garcia around, but for the past 2 years, every effort that we have made has been shot down. So we're at this point.
A crisis they now intend to solve with a vote of no confidence.
The community we serve, the mayor, city council, and the city manager deserve more from a police chief. Craig Tiger was the final straw that broke the back of confidence and removed what little bit of morale was left on the department.
Ballots for the vote will be sent out to the homes of Phoenix police officers immediately. An official count of the votes is expected to be taken after the vote closes on December 10th. Now, the city of Phoenix says that it will create a task force designed to find ways to improve PTSD programs for officers. The task force is expected to include city officials, labor representatives, and outside experts. Live in the Media Center, Michael Gordon, Cronkite News.
In his first public appearance since the election today, Governor-elect Doug Ducey started the launch serving Arizona. Ducey kicked off the initiative at St. Vincent de Paul in downtown Phoenix. He wants others to know how important it is to give back. While volunteering by feeding those in need, reporters asked the future governor about President Barack Obama's expected executive action on immigration.
We just had elections. We've got a new Congress. We've got a new Senate. I would call on the president to demonstrate leadership first by securing our borders and work with elected leaders on a step-by-step process for proper immigration reform.
Ducey also said that he would not be in favor of a government shutdown to force the president's hand on immigration. Now, according to a report from the Department of Interior, last year's 16-day government shutdown cost the state of Arizona $27 million, second highest loss in the country following California at $31 million. Despite a looming vote recount for Arizona's 2nd Congressional District, Republican Martha McSally was in the nation's capital today. Our Washington Bureau reporter Justin McDuffie spent the day at the Capitol.
While Arizonans anxiously await the outcome of Arizona's 2nd Congressional District, Republican candidate Martha McSally has declared victory and has traveled here to Washington to begin freshman orientation. Now, that election has yet to be officially called, but an announcement is expected to come December 1st, which could lead to a recall. Reporting from our nation's capital, Justin McDuffie, Cronkite News.
As of today, the unofficial election results from the Secretary of State show McSally leading Barber by just 161 votes. According to the state law, the recount is mandatory if the margin of victory is less than 200 votes. But the recount can't begin until the official election canvass is finished. As Justin noted, that canvass is scheduled to be finalized on December 1st. Some surprise federal inspections could be in a big bump in the road for the Super Bowl here in Arizona. Agents fanned across the country yesterday asking NFL doctors about some teams' use of prescription drugs. Reporter Stephen Hicks is tracking the story from our Cronkite News Washington Bureau. Stephen?
Thanks, Megan. It's been called the painkiller lawsuit. Filed back in May, some 1,300 former players alleged that team doctors were masking player injuries with illegal painkillers in order for them to get back on the field. Now, yesterday, federal drug enforcement officials performed surprise inspections to make sure that NFL teams are complying with federal drug laws. Now, the Buccaneers were briefly questioned at Baltimore-Washington International Airport after they beat the Redskins. DEA agents also surprised several other teams on the road, including the 49ers after their game against the Giants and the Seahawks after their matchup with the Chiefs. Now, yesterday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tweeted the following about the incident, saying that authorities checked in with our travel party at BWI, and after a 5-minute delay, we proceeded onto our plane without incident. Now, a spokesman from the U.S. Attorney's Office, where the NFL is headquartered, said that he confirmed the investigations but would make no other comment on it, instead referring me to the DEA. Cronkite News reached out to the DEA several times but received no response. We also reached out to the Cardinals for their policy on prescription drugs, but again, received no response. Live in Washington, D.C., Stephen Hicks, Cronkite News.
Thanks, Stephen. Well, there's also a crackdown here in the Valley on sex trafficking ahead of the Super Bowl. Reporter Tweela Nugent has details on a new report showing just how big a problem sex trade is for young adults.
The Super Bowl is less than 100 days away, and that means thousands of visitors, boosting Arizona's business. But Phoenix leaders are hoping that those extra dollars aren't spent on the business of commercial sex.
And as a survivor, you know, and been through that at the age of 15 and coming out of that lifestyle where a lot of these kids is getting stabbed, shot, you got a whole lot of scarrings, you know, a lot of the hurt and the shame and the pain and guilt.
For many, the idea of sex trafficking is out of sight, out of mind, but it's a very prevalent issue in Arizona. In a recent FBI operation, a glimpse was offered into just how big of a problem it really is.
And for National Johns Week, that's an initiative to identify and arrest persons soliciting prostitution through undercover techniques. In Arizona, we arrested 150. Nationally, we arrested 496.
With the Super Bowl approaching, some are worried that the problem will only get worse, but leaders are hoping to use it as an opportunity instead.
We see this as a real opportunity to build awareness about this issue, and we want to make sure that we don't leave that opportunity really unaddressed.
Our job is to enlighten and to give, bring awareness to the community. And now you see everybody's working on it now and working together, which is really important.
The Human Trafficking Council is now trying to organize a multi-jurisdictional task force. In Glendale, Tweela Nugent, Cronkite News.
Now let's pass it off to Carrie Osep with a look at what's coming up on Cronkite News. Overcoming obstacles to better their future, why these high school students woke up early to make life after graduation a little easier. And through rain, snow, or sunny weather, the tomb of the unknown soldier remains under guard. We take you to Washington and introduce you to a man who holds this honored responsibility.
Who were the people that got us from there?
A world without glass, clean drinking water, time, or light.
To here.
These were hobbyists, garage inventors, and obsessive tinkerers. These are people who actually made the modern world, who set off an amazing chain reaction of ideas.
It's the story of How We Got to Now with Stephen Johnson, coming in October, only on PBS.
Cronkite News brings you access across Arizona.
To some, it may just look like a plot of dirt, but to others, it's an eternal resting place. Tracing Arizona's history can be difficult, but one organization is helping modernize the past. As part of our Access Across Arizona project, we're traveling to every county in the state to bring you often untold stories. Tonight, we head to Gila County in the city of Globe, where some volunteers are working to preserve a piece of our state's history. Reporter Colton Krolak joins us now live from Globe. Colton?
That's right. Cronkite reporter Lacey Darrow and I traveled to Globe, Arizona, here in Gila County, to track down those who are dedicated to preserving Arizona history. But it's not the typical historic sites they're worried about preserving, it's grave sites. These mounds represent lives of Globe residents who have helped settle this area as far back as the 1800s. The Globe, Arizona Cemetery has several thousand plots, but many of the families of the deceased have long moved away. That's where findagrave.com comes in.
Find a Grave is a resource or a service to people who do not live necessarily in this area, who want to obtain a picture or a location for a loved one.
Anyone looking for information regarding a relative can log on to the site and do a search. Volunteers like Joe Scammell and Leanne Powers have spent countless hours walking the cemetery, taking photos of the memorials, and uploading them to the site so that families of the deceased can see the memorial without having to travel to the remote area.
As a legacy of our history, our Arizona history, of our Globe history, it's important to remember these people and to try to get the information as accurate as we can.
But over the decades, many of the markers indicating who lies below have become weathered, vandalized, or simply did not exist in the first place.
But we know that there's somebody buried there. We just can't tell you who.
During the time periods that a lot of these people were buried was late 1800s, early 1900s. People were very poor, and there are a great many of those graves, and graves of children and babies. They didn't have the money to put markers on there.
Together, using newspapers, the internet, and other historical items, the volunteers try to identify the individual in every plot of the cemetery. They also receive requests from families who are looking for a long-lost loved one. Sometimes, they're able to send them a picture of the memorial.
There's Bill Green! There he is, we're looking for him!
Other times, they simply cannot be found.
We'll give that 110% to find the monument, but we can't expend a tremendous amount of time on one individual as much as we'd like to.
Either way, the volunteers are doing their best to preserve a small piece of Arizona history.
We're making a difference. We feel like we're making a difference.
Now, we got to see firsthand how hard these two work. And while we were filming, Leanne and Joe actually found where the grave was of a baby they had been looking for. Live in Globe, Colton Krolak, Cronkite News.
Rain was pouring down in Washington, D.C. today, making tourists shy away from Arlington National Cemetery. But one group is there no matter what the weather is like. Cronkite News reporter Brittany Bade has the story.
Forward! March!
The Sentinels march. Precise, respected, and everlasting.
Everything we do is not like anything you've ever done in your life.
Specialist John Arriaga guards the tomb of the unknowns.
Every time you cross that threshold of the chains and actually get onto the plaza, it basically just feels like the weight of every veteran, of anyone that's ever served and sacrificed, is on your shoulders, and you're just trying to do your best for them.
Sun, rain, or snow, the Sentinels continue to carry that weight.
Knowing that anyone buried in the ground that sacrificed all, knowing that they suffered way worse and didn't quit, gives you no excuse to quit when you're still living.
That endurance is what draws more than 4 million people a year from all over the country to Arlington.
I guess I'm inspired of their dedication.
The freezing rain pouring down today is testament to the soldiers' dedication.
I was honestly shocked when we walked down here and saw that he was just wearing his little coat and then just not even a warm hat or anything.
Despite the discomfort the elements bring, inspiration is found in every march.
I'd say my best day is probably the day of my dad's death.
A chance to pay respect to his father, a Vietnam veteran. Arriaga marched for 12 straight hours that night.
That was my way of just spending that night with my dad.
One night just for his father, all others for his country. At Arlington National Cemetery, Brittany Bade, Cronkite News.
Each Sentinel guards the Tomb of the Unknowns for 3 years. After that, they are restationed. But the elite Tomb Guard pin is added to their service uniform. Now, let's check in with Kayla Wall for a look at what's ahead.
Thanks, Carrie. Elk collisions are on the rise, but Arizona Game and Fish is trying something new to keep you and the wildlife safe on your next drive. And later, these high schoolers are here early to run this obstacle course for the Army. See how this course could change their futures.
Reaching Arizona's communities uncovered by mainstream media. Discovering the untold stories of our state's women, men, children, and change makers.
We're taking a look at what's making news across Arizona.
This is the Cronkite News Initiative, Access Across Arizona. Live coverage of topics that matter and people who make a difference. Delivered to the homes of Arizona PBS viewers like you. Access Across Arizona is made possible by Women and Philanthropy.
How do we educate in a rapidly changing world?
How can we create a sustainable way of life?
How can we teach peace?
Arizona State University. Rise to the challenges before us.
On the ground, animals can face many dangers. As the weather cools down, wildlife crossing roadways is a concern here in Arizona. Reporter Chase Golightly explains why animals are on the move this fall. Chase?
Elk, deer, and other wildlife become more active as the sun goes down, and that creates a danger for drivers.
This time of year especially, people need to be real vigilant when on the highways in Arizona.
With days becoming shorter and winter weather approaching, Arizona Game and Fish has put out a statement reminding drivers to be careful of wildlife crossing the road after sunset.
This is the time of night where animals are coming out, they're crossing the road, and you're more likely to have an accident. And that's going to be costly for the animal and costly in the pocket.
The main areas where drivers need to be alert are on the I-17 and the 260. So far this year, there have been 80 elk collisions on the I-17 alone. Sue Whitney, a Phoenix resident who drives to and from Flagstaff on the weekends, says she won't drive at night anymore.
I drove home this morning so I could have the sunlight. You can't see those animals at night. I usually come in on Sundays, but it's getting dark now, so I just don't feel safe out there.
To help stop wildlife collisions, Arizona Game and Fish has teamed up with the Arizona Department of Transportation to create underpasses for wildlife to safely cross.
So we have funnel fencing to encourage these animals to go under and use these underpasses in those areas, and that has cut down significantly on the number of elk collisions with vehicles.
Even with the underpasses, drivers are still warned to stay alert when driving past dusk.
We're hoping that people are safe, watching out for animals on both sides of the road. If you see one animal, there are probably more out there, and it can be very costly for you if you're not paying attention to the road.
Game and Fish would also like to remind drivers to stay off their cell phones while on the road and also to look out for animals on the side, just in case they may be crossing. In Phoenix, Chase Golightly, Cronkite News.
It's been cool temperatures all across the country, and we're going to take a look up at our national satellite and radar map, take a look at this movement happening here up in the northeast. This is a part of Winter Storm Bozeman, which has been bringing a lot of frigid, cool air and is also bringing a lot of precipitation into this region today into tonight, and also expected with that precipitation up here, you can expect a couple inches of snow your way. Let's look at the temperatures up in the country today. 52 right now in New York, 14 degrees in Chicago, 33 degrees in Denver, and 40 degrees in Dallas. And we're gonna take a look down in our state temperatures right now. This morning we received the coolest temperatures we have so far this season. Temperatures this morning ranged from around 30 to the low 50 degrees. Right now 43 degrees in the Grand Canyon, 39 in Flagstaff, 53 in Prescott, 68 in Tucson, and 70 degrees in Phoenix. Some warmer temperatures during the day, but expect those to cool off into the night. And the National Weather Service released a freeze warning for the state of Arizona, mainly the northern part of the state, into tonight. So if you have those plants outside, it's gonna be that time where you start to cover them up. And taking a look right now, as we know, it's really cool outside, but also very dry as well. Humidity at 9%, wind speed is 6 miles per hour, and the dew point is at 8. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast this upcoming week.
A low tonight of 46 degrees headed into this week, a low of 70 degrees, sunny and bright, a little cloud coverage on Wednesday and Friday, but expect this week to be sunny. I'm Tana Hughes, Cronkite Weather. While some of us stayed bundled inside this morning, one high school gave its students an early opportunity to prepare for their future. The students at Dobson High School learned how they could be Army strong.
1, 2, 3, up.
The Army High School Challenge is a mixture of physical and mental exercises designed to promote leadership, fitness, problem solving, and above all,
teamwork. Absolutely, teamwork.
The challenge is an outreach group that travels all over the country to get students motivated, involved, and informed.
Get out there, do some push-ups, some sit-ups, some pull-ups, be physically active.
Students were put to the test in various competitions that tested their abilities to work together.
We want to promote teamwork so that way, they can get through the little plank obstacle course behind us, as well as the ring obstacle we have right here. More minds working together as one.
The activities included a board walking exercise, a team puzzle, strength tests, as well as a 4-man push-up competition.
1, 2, 3, up, down.
I think it's a really interesting way to get kids involved in seeing what the Army does.
And the biggest thing Sarah took away from today?
Perseverance, the ability to not give up and just keep going.
A total workout for both the arms and the mind.
Down.
42.
The Army High School Challenge will continue tomorrow at North High School in Phoenix before it wraps up and heads off to another city. Let's go back to Megan for what's coming up next.
Thanks, Kayla. Local milk for local Arizonans. A Levine Dairy Farm is using old methods to make new milk just 12 hours after milking. We take you through the process and show you their latest flavor creations.
Brothers and sisters, can you tell me where to go?
The women were breaking the glass ceiling.
That just thrilled me. We're traveling back in time to help solve family mysteries. No.
Wait, that's
amazing.
A new deal for the American people.
We wouldn't be who we are without them.
I just gotta get on back to my home at any cost.
Who were the people that got us from there
A world without glass, clean drinking water, time, or light.
to here?
These were hobbyists, garage inventors, and obsessive tinkerers. These are people who actually made the modern world, who set off an amazing chain reaction of ideas.
It's the story of How We Got to Now with Stephen Johnson, coming in October, only on PBS.
I'm standing up for myself and for other people like me.
Wow.
This is a bit odd.
Are you okay?
It's kind of insane, but in a good way.
It's a mix of old and new. One Levine Dairy Company wants to show the next generation the old-fashioned flair milk once had. And as I show you, they're spinning the bottle back in time.
I just walk the corrals. I just go and check cows and see how it's going.
As the sun peeks over the Estrella Mountains, Kevin Danzais and checks on his hooved employees.
And they'll come back and lay down in a nice spot, and this is when they make more milk.
And he has more than 1,000 Holstein cows to keep an eye on. They're milked up to 3 times a day, and the hundreds of gallons travel just down the road.
It's hard to believe this is in the city limits of Phoenix.
But this city dairy farm is doing things the old-fashioned way. Inside the factory, you won't find the latest and greatest technology.
We've searched all over the country to find equipment. We have tanks and bottle washers and bottle fillers and homogenizers and pasteurizers and all that stuff, and that's all refurbished.
Refurbished from decades before. They're trying to make plastic a thing of the past.
And now we're bottling our own milk in glass bottles just like the good old days.
From farm to factory to fridge, this dairy is putting milk in your home within 12 hours of milking.
There's no denying that it tastes better, and I think we've sacrificed a lot of quality for quantity, and we're not doing that.
With their old school ways, they're trying to appeal to a 21st century crowd by making a milk trend with new flavors.
Add some excitement back to milk.
Nindi Wadwa was brought on board to put a spin on the bottled beverage.
Let's just have fun with it, let's think outside the box, and if we want to do something crazy, let's try it. You got nothing to lose.
Those crazy ideas: root beer, Arizona orange, and eggnog milk flavors.
And when they first opened and I tasted it, it was like off the charts.
Flavors that have brought new customers in for a taste.
I didn't think that orange milk was going to taste too good, but it is. It's really good.
A glass bottle is just the way to go.
One thing that I want to show you is right down this way.
For Kevin, it's not about being the biggest dairy producer in the nation.
We're making products that cultivate that culture.
Instead, he prides himself on building a Valley company, creating products for Valley residents.
We want to give back, create jobs. That's our biggest goal.
And of course, make his employees happy in the factory and on the farm. The Dandyzen Dairy is in a few retailers right now, including AJ's Fine Foods. You can always go straight to the dairy near Southern and 59th Avenue and buy your milk there as well. Well, that's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.
Find top Arizona stories anytime at CronkiteNewsOnline.com.